In this episode, you'll come to understand why you can have the conversation, analyze it, even cry about it, and you're still not having sex. Sexy After 50. Improve sex and intimacy by healing your nervous system so you finally feel turned on and confident. This episode is about why and what actually works instead. Stay with me until the end because I'm going to help you understand talking about desire is not the same as feeling it, and that your brain is wired to want what it cannot fully predict, and that novelty is not about being adventurous. It is about being alive. Okay, today we're going somewhere most intimacy conversations never go to. Past the communication advice, past the schedule a date night prescription, which I highly don't recommend, and into the actual neuroscience of why desire resurrects itself in the presence of the new and dies a quiet death in the presence of the known. If you are in a relationship where you love your partner, you're not attracted to them anymore, and every conversation about it makes things worse instead of better, this episode, girl, was made for you. And if you're single and trying to understand why the desire you had at the beginning of relationships always seems to fade, this will explain the mechanism underneath that pattern in a way nobody ever handed you before. So let's get to it. Okay, so here is what happens when couples try to talk their way back to desire, right? They sit down, usually after weeks or months of quiet distance. And this is, after my 30 years in a clinical office, a lot of couples, when they hit marriage counseling, they don't even have the language to talk about this. So this, if you're able to even sit down and talk about this, you're somewhat of an outlier. But after weeks or months of quiet distance, they try to name what is wrong. And one person says they feel disconnected. The other says they feel rejected. Someone brings up frequency. Someone mentions the last time it was good. And within 20 minutes, the conversation has turned into a negotiation or a wound counting exercise. Hello, resentment, or a careful diplomatic exchange that leaves both people more aware of the problem and no closer to wanting each other. Girl, it's not because they're bad communicators. It's because language is the wrong tool for the job. Desire does not live in your prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that handles reasoning, analysis, and conversation. It lives in the subcortical structures, the older, faster, more primitive brain systems that operate below language entirely. Jaak Panksepp's research, we've talked about him just recently, but it's worth repeating, his research on the seeking system, and if y'all remember, that's one of the primary emotional operating systems in the mammalian brain. His research tells us that desire, craving, the erotic anticipation are generated by the dopaminergic circuits that are activated by pursuit, novelty, and uncertainty. And just to pause, I know I slaughtered that one word. If y'all have listened to my podcast for a hot minute, we embrace that and think that's endearing when I do that. But anyway, I edit a lot of it out and then I go, I'm closest I'm going to get. But so desire or craving and erotic anticipation are created. We activate that dopamine circuit, and that's activated by pursuit, novelty, and uncertainty, not by understanding, not by clarity, not by a well-articulated conversation about what each person needs. Girl, have y'all ever had those conversations? Can you relate to what I'm saying? You have them, and it just leaves you even more frustrated sometimes because that language is not getting to where to where we need it to get. That's how I'm going to say that. When you talk about desire in an analytical way, you're actually activating the wrong brain system. You're pulling the experience up into the cortex where it gets examined, categorized, and problem solved, which is precisely the mode that shuts the body down. Lisa Feldman Barrett's research on predictive processing, which we talk about a lot here, adds another layer here. Her work shows that your brain is constantly running predictions about what's coming next based on prior experience, right? A body in a long-term relationship has a very refined predictive model of its partner. It knows the routine, it knows the rhythm, it knows the outcome before anything ever starts. And a brain that already knows what's going to happen has very little reason to generate neurological state that we call desire. See, desire at its core is a response to the unknown. It is the body's way of leaning towards something it cannot fully see yet, which means the problem in most long-term relationships is not that couples have stopped communicating. It is that they have stopped being surprising to each other. And no amount of conversation about that fact is going to fix it. Because the fix is not in the linguistics. It's in the experiential. So let me tell you what novelty actually does in the brain. Because I think most people hear that word novelty and picture skydiving or swinging from the chandeliers in the new position or leather. And that's not what I'm talking about. Novelty is any experience that your predictive brain cannot fully map in advance. Okay? Girl, it doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be expensive or elaborate or outside your comfort zone. It simply has to be genuinely unfamiliar. Something your nervous system has not already filed under known. And when you encounter a novel experience, the brain releases dopamine, not as a reward, as most people assume, but as an anticipatory signal. Dopamine is the neurochemical of wanting, of not having. It is released in the gap between expectation and outcome, in the space where something is possible, but not yet certain. And this is exactly what Panksepp's seeking system runs on. It is the drive state that underlies curiosity, exploration, craving, and yes, erotic desire. In new relationships, novelty is built in, right? You don't know what's going to happen. It is so yummy. Every conversation reveals something unknown. Every touch lands on a body that hasn't been fully mapped yet. Every encounter has an uncertain outcome. The nervous system is in a continuous state of dopaminergic activation, which is why new relationships feel so electrically alive, and why that aliveness is so destabilizing when it fades. What fades is not love. What fades is novelty. And because we have been taught to equate the intensity of a new love with real desire, most people interpret the loss of novelty as loss of attraction. They conclude that they are simply no longer attracted to their partner. But that is a misreading of biology. The attraction circuitry has not broken down. The novelty that was feeding it has been exhausted. So let's talk to Marta Miana. She's a researcher on female arousal, and she adds a critical piece to this. Her work consistently shows that women's desire is particularly sensitive to feeling desired. specifically to feeling desired in a way that is not routine or obligatory. Let that sink in. When a partner's interest feels predictable, when intimacy follows a known script, when the outcome is assumed before anything begins, Miana's data shows that women's arousal response drops significantly. See, the body needs to feel chosen, not scheduled, wanted, not expected. And the neurological signal that communicates, I want you specifically right now in this moment, is novelty. It is the disruption of the expected. It is the moment where your partner behaves in a way your predictive brain did not see coming. This is not about performance or effort. It's about genuine aliveness in the encounter. It is about bringing something real and present and unrehearsed into the space between two people and letting that nervous system respond. Here's what I want to be really specific about, because I'm not prescribing a list of bedroom activities. What I'm doing is describing the quality of experience that reactivates the desire circuitry, and then giving you enough examples that you can find your own version. Novelty works through any of these senses, and research on this is more grounded than most people realize. So back to Frances McGlone's work on CT afferents. The C tactile nerve fibers in your skin specifically designed to respond to slow, affectionate touch. This research shows that these fibers are tuned to an extremely specific velocity and pressure. When touch falls outside that familiar pattern, the nervous system registers it differently. A hand placed somewhere unexpected, a pressure that is slower or firmer than the known routine, touch that begins before it is anticipated. The body wakes up, not because something foreign is happening, but because something known is being interrupted. Temperature is another route in. Your skin is extraordinarily sensitive to thermal contrast. A warm hand against a cool neck, the movement from warm water to cool air, these transitions activate interoceptive systems in your body. And this interoceptive system is your body's, internal sensing, let's say. It's an internal sensing network. And these transitions activate this in a way that flat ambient temperature cannot. You cannot predict exactly what you will feel at the moment of contrast. And that micro uncertainty is registering in the brain as information worth attending to. See, environment matters more than most couples realize. The research on context and desire is consistent. Desire is highly sensitive to setting. Your brain builds predictions based on location. When you are in your own bedroom, in your own bed, at the same hour, you're always there, your predictive system has a nearly complete model of what is about to happen. I look at desire smoking a cigarette in the corner going, boring. Because been here, done that, I know what's fixing to happen. But girl, if you move intimacy to a different room, a different time of day, a different surface, a different level of light, any of these shifts activates a mild novelty response that loosens the grip of the predictive model. You are not in familiar territory anymore, and the body notices. Girl, yes, it's that simple. So role, let's talk about role, not role play in a theatrical sense, but in the relational sense is perhaps the most powerful novelty ever. And it's a great lever to pull. And what I mean by this is the way you carry yourself into the encounter, the quality of your attention, if you're present or performing, if you're following a script or actually discovering something about the other person, is this specific in this specific moment. When your partner encounters a version of you that is genuinely unrehearsed, curious rather than certain, playful rather than purposeful, interested in what they feel rather than executing a known sequence, that registers as novel. Because it is. You're not giving them what they predicted. You're giving them something they cannot quite anticipate. And the nervous system responds to that with the exact neurochemical cascade that desire requires. So there's a reason couples who finally turn things around almost never point to a conversation as the moment things changed. They point to an experience, a weekend away where things felt different, a spontaneous detour from the usual routine, a moment that nobody planned that somehow broke open something that months of careful discussion had not touched. It's not an accident, y'all. It's neurobiology. And Peter Levine's work on somatic experiencing tells us that the body stores pattern, including relational pattern, in the nervous system itself, not in the narrative mind. The pattern of how intimacy begins in your relationship, what it feels like, what it leads up to, what it costs you afterward. All of that is encoded somatically. And somatic encoding does not respond to verbal processing the way cognitive beliefs do. You can't think your way out of a body pattern. You have to move through a different experience. This is why novelty heals what talking can't. A new experience, one that disrupts encoded pattern at the body level, that, my friend, that creates a new somatic memory. Not a new belief, a new felt sense of what is possible between two people. And that new felt sense becomes the foundation for a new predictive model. Your brain stops expecting the known outcome and starts holding genuine uncertainty about what might happen, which is exactly where desire lives. Then Rosemary Basson's circular model of responsive desire maps this beautifully for women specifically. And I know these are all researchers that we've met on this program and have talked to before, but I come back to them because they give us such important information. So here's how her research really maps this specifically for women. Her research shows that most women, desire does not precede arousal, okay? Desire is not there before you're aroused. It follows it. You do not feel desire and then become aroused. You encounter the right conditions, your body then begins to respond, and guess what happens? Desire emerges from that response. But we've got to be open to it. That's safety plays a big role here as well. But what this means practically is that waiting to want something before you pursue novelty is waiting in the wrong order. You create the novel experience first. The desire arises from being in it. The body leads, the mind follows. This is the inversion that changes everything, because most of us gals who have lost desire are waiting for the motivation to arrive before they act. They are waiting to want it before they try. But the wanting comes from the trying, not before it. And the trying, to be effective, has to feel genuinely new. Not performed, not obligatory, not another item on the intimacy maintenance checklist. Genuinely, sensorily, experientially new. Let that sink in just a minute. We're waiting for desire and then response. We have to do it in the other order. Novel, response, desire. I want to give you something you can do this week. Not a homework assignment per se, but let's think of it as an experiment in your own body's response to the unexpected. I call this the stranger in the room practice, but it's not what it sounds like. So here's what you do. The next time you're with your partner in a context that is normally non-sexual, dinner, a drive, sitting together in the evening, I want you to look at them as if you do not know them. Not as a performance, as an actual perceptual shift. Let go, just for a moment, of everything you know about this person, the history, the habits, the ways they have disappointed you or surprised you or become predictable to you. Look at their hands, the line of their jaw, the way they hold their glass. Let yourself be genuinely curious about what they're thinking right now in this moment that you cannot know. I do this with my husband all the time. It's really kind of fun. I get butterflies a lot of times. But let me assure you, you're not manufacturing attraction. You're interrupting your predictive model. You're doing deliberately what the nervous system does automatically in the presence of genuinely new experiences. And in that small gap between the known and the unknown, something tends to stir. I want you to try this for 3 minutes. Notice what shifts in your body. Not what you think about, but what you physically feel. A small loosening somewhere, a flicker of curiosity, maybe nothing this first time. That's fine. There's no right or wrong. But do it 3 times in a week and pay attention to if the quality of your attention to this person begins to change. The stranger is not a threat. The stranger is the part of your partner you stopped looking for because you assumed you already do everything there was to find. Okay. So 3 things I want you to carry out of this episode. 1, desire lives below language. Talking about the absence of desire rarely restores it because you're engaging the wrong system of the brain. The fix is experiential, not analytical. Novelty is not performance. It is any experience that your predictive brain cannot fully anticipate. It can be as small as a different touch, a different room, a different quality of attention. The nervous system does not require drama. It requires genuine uncertainty. And girl, the body leads. For most women, desire follows arousal, not the other way around. Create the novel experience first, the wanting emerges from being inside it. All right, that's going to wrap us up for today. If today's episode landed for you, share it with someone who needs it, please. And if you're in there sharing, please hit subscribe. I'd love to have you in the community. And get ready to change the conversation you're having with your body. And just a quick note, if you've made it this far in the podcast, I am developing a new program called Alive. It's a 28-day program to reignite your desire and your aliveness and just be re-embodied again. I'll say more about it, but just if this piqued your curiosity or even landed for you, please know I have so much more to offer. Okay, so we're changing the conversation you're having with your body. Very important. I want to see you next week right here, and I hope you have a fabulous day. Sexy After 50. Improve sex and intimacy by healing your nervous system so you finally feel turned on and confident.